Hello, everybody. This is Michael Tabb. I'm your professor of advanced script editing. I also teach screenwriting here at Full Sail University in the master's program. And we're going to go through a few things, a scene, and have an open question and answer period with the students. I want to thank you all for coming. I also want to say that it's incredibly brave whoever offers their scenes to be critiqued in front of everybody. I want everyone to note that that is real bravery. A lot of us writers, we're quiet people. We like to watch, we witness, a lot of us tend to be wallflowers. The reason why we write is because we're more observers than anything else in life. We like to study things and then tell stories that anecdotally explain our feelings on them. So anybody who puts themselves up for in front of everybody to be read and get notes in front of everybody, it takes a great amount of courage to do that with your work. So thank you for having the courage to do that. I'm going to start by opening it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions to start the evening? Nobody has any questions. That's great. That means I've done an excellent job. You've learned everything you need to know. We're done. Good night. No. Okay. All right. If nobody has any questions, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open the first scene. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And I'm going to turn off the webcam. And Mr. Muller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Fabulous. Everyone else, please feel free to mute your microphones. Again, for those of you who weren't here at the start, it's the green button on the left-hand side of your GoTo Training control panel that is on the right-hand side of your computer screen right now. Now, if anybody here wonders who I'm talking to, who's watching this afterwards, just so you understand, there is a chat window that you do not see. I'm not crazy. I'm not talking to myself. People can ask me questions in the chat window, and I may answer them, though it doesn't. You don't hear or see anybody asking the question. I'm not talking to myself, or just spouting. Um, okay, to start with, Mr. Muller, do you have any questions that you wanted to ask me?
No, I just wanted to point out that in the log line I made a mistake by saying a man who does wear a pistol. It's supposed to say a man who doesn't wear a pistol.
That's not. That doesn't help you. Yeah, I get you. All right, so um, rancher in front of the store. Okay, so these were my notes. So I wanted to tell the audience that it was out. I didn't know. Did you put out west or did I?
You did.
I did. Okay. So basically, I was trying to set that it's a western, a young mixed blood. Now, if you're going to introduce a character, I don't think it's important his how if he's I think what's important is if you're going to give a character in a log line an adjective, him being mixed blood isn't going to change the story unless this entire short is going to be about race relations and racism in the era and what it means to be someone of going through those specific troubles. Then that's really not what you need. Whether he's a rancher or not, if you're not dealing with ranching at all in the script and you're not dealing with the mixed blood issue, then what you're gonna want to do is get rid of those and put in there a character flaw. Now, what is Gentry's character flaw that that plagues him that makes him innately flawed and human?
Well, he is nonviolent. He doesn't believe in guns. That something that's pretty adverse in
So
the
he's
Wild West.
a pacifist. Uh, pacifist. Pacifist. Gentry rides into town with his. Now, is is the I read the scene and I read the script a while ago in the screenwriting class. Are the other two roles in the story crucial to the way things go, or is it more about Gentry learning to stand up for himself? You don't want to fill a log line, even though you need supporting characters. You don't want to fill a log line with supporting characters because you want a person going into your script feeling like they are in the shoes of one person, that it's a specific character story and what they are going through and their journey and their struggles, the opposition, the antagonist they're facing. It's really about that. So, like for example, you have the conflict of the logline is between these filthy cowpokes and Gentry. So right. The fact that the Anglo wife and the war hero partner, it's not really about them. I wouldn't mention them in the logline at all, even though they may be really important to the story and the character arc. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So it'll allow you to create a logline right into town. So I will go where to. Now, two filthy cowpokes. This is an important rule. There are four major commas that everybody really does need to know. And then the one major comma rule that everybody needs to know not to do. So one of those is the listing comma. If you have a list of items or descriptive words like adjectives, like two and filthy are both describing cowpoke. When you have two back to back without an and between them, there is a comma to separate them. It's called a listing comma. It's done in lists. Now, sometimes it's a list of actions like John runs, dives, and slides under the table. In that case, it would be runs, comma, dives, and slides under the table. Before the and, you can use a comma or you cannot use a comma. In American English, you would not use a comma traditionally, but everybody accepts a comma in the other case because it's what's called an Oxford comma. I don't know if I'm going too far. Anyway, this is one of the four major commas you need to know. If you want a simple 5.5-minute breakdown of the four basic commas you need to know to pass this class, watch the Comma Time video on my Vimeo page. Vimeo, Vimeo, and it's Full Sail Mike. I sent you the link with my very first email. All of you have it, no matter which class you're in. And
I've watched it, yep, a couple times, I think.
Well, watch it again. It doesn't hurt. Filthy Cowpokes Challenge. Now, you've said he's a pacifist, so once you've said he's a pacifist, you don't need to say he doesn't wear a gun. Right?
Okay.
Challenge him to a gunfight. It's simple. That tells the entire story of your short film, doesn't it?
Sure.
All right, perfect. Yay! All right, and I didn't change anything of your intent or your story, right? It's everything you meant, right?
Yeah, it's just more concise.
That's right. And that's exactly all this class is. That's what editing is. Now, there are some things that are really hard to grasp and get your head around and figure out how to do, but my whole class of editing, the advanced script editing, is not about changing your story. I want to be clear. If I give you a creative idea for changing your story, I will never have hurt feelings whether you use my idea or not. There's no ownership in it. I honestly don't care. I'm just trying to give you an example. I mean, I care about the welfare of your script, but I don't care if you use the ideas. Don't worry about authorship. When I give you an idea, I am literally giving you the idea. It's all of a sudden yours. You get to take credit. Your name's on the cover, not mine. Enjoy. If you don't like the idea, or in the end, the idea just is to help give you an idea for what I meant or for how I would suggest going about it. Never feel a need to do exactly what I say. Now, whenever you're going to set up a scene, like in the descriptions, I try to say this: never tell people what happens in a scene. This is very important, by the way, for many many reasons, and this is a layered note that everybody should know, no matter what they do. A lot of time in scenes, characters will broach a subject, and you do it in the scene also, so we'll come back to it. So it's a thing you'll want to work on. They'll broach a subject in the scene, move forward to a different subject, and then go back to the subject they were talking about before. It's the same thing here. You don't want to set up a scene, tell them what we're supposed to know is going to happen, and then show it. Don't tell us, just in everything. If anybody asks for setup, tell them what's not on the screen that they need to know to understand what is on the screen. Because basically, whenever you tell somebody something that is then repeated, either in the story or the script, or you come back to and say again, that is a moment of non-momentum. It's everything suddenly goes into halt mode, and you lose your footing, and it kind of feels like you take a step back. The whole idea of great writing and great writers, when you're hearing story being told, is that you constantly feel like you're kind of it's like you're taking steps in the dark, and you're constantly moving forward, and you don't know where that next step is going to lead. That, it's the kind of that mystery, that the spine tingling, oh my god, what is the next thing, what's going to happen next. And the minute you make an audience feel like you're taking a giant step back, and there's no more risk, unless a giant hole opened up in the ground behind them, it's not going to keep the audience engaged. So you never want to say or pronounce or tell people what you're about to show them in any kind of storytelling. Does that make sense? The only thing you'll do is you'll give them a sense of what it is with a log line. But if anybody asks for a scene setup, tell them what they need to know before the story. If this is the first scene of the script, you don't need to ever don't explain it beforehand. You know what I mean? Constantly make the audience feel like you're moving forward. All right, Adam Green, the character needs an introduction. Now, when I crossed this off, you said this is the scene. It sounded like you were about to explain this scene.
Yeah.
Is this the first scene?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So you didn't need a character introduction. Now, is this the first time Adam is seen in the script? Actually,
Well, no. He's seen at the end of the previous scene
and
in
does he
in the
have a
window.
memorable entrance?
Yeah, I mentioned his age and white rim glasses and gray hair.
That's not a memorable entrance. What I mean by a
Oh,
memorable entrance is one of the things you all will want to remember is that the first thing an actor reads when considering being a part of your film in any way, shape, or form is the character introduction. So
mhm.
it's exceedingly important that if you want to get somebody who has real talent to want to be in your script, that the first time a character appears on screen, you want to try to make sure you give them an entrance that makes them memorable. It's also important from a story perspective so that people remember characters from one scene to the next. So if somebody has a memorable entrance and does something, and one person is the person who always talks crazy and his hair is in a mess, and he comes running into the room, that's his first entrance, slides across the table, crashes to the floor, picks up a roach and eats it. Nobody's going to forget the character, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, you don't need to be that extreme. He's not Renfield. Uh, but the idea is try to make sure that when you introduce a character, that you do something with that character that allows the audience to go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I want to play that role. Oh, the reader should you want to give them something special. So when you introduced Adam earlier, when you introduce every one of the characters, is obviously especially Gentry, you want to do so with a specific action that would probably highlight the fact that he's a pacifist. Like, for example, he could be saving a bug. You know, in a situation where you would naturally see somebody squash a bug or a fly or a bug or something. If it's a flying thing, he opens the thing to let it out instead of squishes it. Something simple. You know,
Mm-hmm.
All right. So anyway, that was a comment on making sure you give characters a good introduction. Okay. Watches the cowpokes. Now I underlined that because I didn't know if that was their introduction um, through the shop window. He moves his head from side to side to see them through the dusty road. In the dusty road,
Yeah, they're in the dusty road.
on the dusty road. You can't
Yeah.
see somebody through the road. If you did, you'd be underground.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Uh, he looks at them through the shop window. At that point, the rest of the stuff, he's looking from side to side. I think that this is micromanaging the performance. If
Okay.
he's bobbing his head side to side to look at, how important is that to your story?
Well,
I
that's
had a question.
Hold on one second. Would you do me a favor? And if you have a question, please write it down. When I'm in the middle of going through notes in the scene, um, I want to be able to work directly with the writer, and then afterwards we can all catch up and ask questions about it. But I want
Okay.
to be able to, at this moment, stay with the author. Um,
Okay.
thank you for your understanding. Uh,
I guess I was saying that as part of his character, he's kind of nosy. He wants to see everything and know everything that's going on. Um,
then
I just
when
would.
you introduce
Yeah.
him, you should make sure he kind of like pokes his head around a corner. Do things. What you should do if he's a nosy character and things like that. I would make yourself a little list of visuals that you feel go along with that, so that
Mhm.
you can constantly be having the character do different things. I like the idea of the nosy character. Um, but I don't think moving his head from side to side that tells us he's nosy. Do you?
Not necessarily,
No.
no.
No. If you're going to communicate a specific thing, you have to make sure that the action communicates it without you having to explain it. It's a really key difference in writing. You can't, unfortunately, in action, you really cannot explain the mindset of characters. You can't draw conclusions for the reader. If the visual doesn't speak for itself, you get rid of it, because the audience who's watching the film isn't going to have you whispering in their ear what it means. So it has to
Mhm.
be a visual that, within its visual alone, contains all the information that gives the audience everything to know they need to know about what that means. So I would get rid of that. Now I'm going to email this edited version of the script that we work on in this class to you, so you don't need to do this yourself where you are. And then
Sure.
you can, when we're done tonight, uh, decide what of my notes you keep and what of my notes you don't, what you choose to use and don't. Now, obviously, I don't care if you take any of my creative suggestions, but it is important that you adhere editing notes, things that need to read better. So if what you want to establish is that um, he's a looky loo, think about, you know, maybe his eyes peep over the ledge of the window at the cowpokes. That kind of says he's kind of peeking. He doesn't want to be seen. He's kind of a looky loo. You know what I mean? So instead of
Hmm.
watching them through the window, maybe he just his eyes slowly glides just the top half of his head out over the windowsill to look out the window at the cowpokes. You see what I mean?
Hmm.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, that gives more of an I guess kind of the image that he's kind of sneaky. I guess, yeah.
Is that what you want, or do you think that's overdoing it?
I think that's overdoing it.
All right, well
Uh,
then we don't need that. Okay,
that's
I'm
what
just trying to
sneaky.
give you what you want.
Yeah.
He turns to the ranchers entering the store. If he's going to speak to them right here, you don't need to say he also turns to them here. Okay?
Okay.
The, you know, uh, one of those phrases that you usually don't need in any script in the action lines is turns to.
Yeah.
Because usually if a character is speaking to somebody, that becomes clear and you don't need to show them turning to them. And sometimes an actor would actually find it more interesting if he's talking to somebody without looking at them. Like a bartender will sometimes, be cleaning the glass and not be looking up as he's talking to the person who sits on the stool, says, "What can I get you?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think we need that. Now, have we met Sarah before this?
Yes.
Okay,
And
great. All right.
the first scene.
Now there's this. Now, just so you know how morning. Now, just so you know, most teachers are not a fan of wording like this. I do it myself, so I'm not going to penalize you for it. But if any teacher gives you guff, you're gonna write morning. But just so you know, when you use the comma, the apostrophe instead of the G to give it that tone, um, after the apostrophe, uh, that's the same as the letter. There's no extra space after that if you have a comma.
Oh, okay.
So the comma goes there, and then you never have a space before a comma ever in grammar. That's something important to remember, everybody. There's never an empty space before a comma in anything grammatical. And there's always a space after the comma. All right. Very important stuff. All right. To Gentry and Cole, Cole I'm sure is his war hero buddy, right?
Yep.
You fellows sure know how to pick 'em. Those two are the meanest back shooting thieving weasels in these parts. In these parts. That's good. Gentry and Cole look steadfast to each other. Now, what is that supposed to communicate?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
That they might be into something more than they, had expected.
Now, did one of them get into the fight and one of them try to stop it?
Well, what was the fight? They saw that he didn't have the pistol, and then they started shooting at his boots and, just playing with him.
Now, does Cole have a pistol?
Yeah, he's got a pistol.
Yeah.
Yeah, he shoots at, their play and shoots the gun out of his hand.
Okay. I'm not sure that this is saying anything. Now, what's important when you're writing a scene is that you keep it visual. So it was a good idea to have a visual there. Your impulse is correct. The problem is that if that beat that you're adding does not forward the conflict or lead to the next line or the next question, that it doesn't actually affect what's being said next or what happens next, then what you have really is a speed bump in the scene. It's not really doing anything. You know the speed bumps in a parking lot, how they're meant to slow you down?
Yeah, action lines that slow you down, yeah.
That's right. That's what we call speed bumps. Now, you'll see you have what looks like when people put a speed bump every other line, if it doesn't actually do anything, you have to look out. Now, I'm okay if they do a visual that affects what the person says next, that's a good visual. You want to be telling a story visually, and you want visuals, but empty visuals don't help us. And so what you're going to want to find ways of doing, part of editing, is figuring out ways to forward a scene and story visually without using empty beats. They have to be full of conflict and character. All right, so them looking to each other doesn't really change what happens next. Being new in town and all, they'll pick till they make notice. Now, what does that mean? They'll pick till they make notice.
Well, so that they like to pick at newcomers to town. Want to know who they are,
Now, was I the only person who? This is something I just want some feedback. Just type in the chat window if did anybody else have trouble understanding what that was, or was that just me? Did you understand it? Yes, if you understood it. No, if you weren't clear. No. Okay. The first person said no. I don't know if anybody else is. Hopefully, everybody's listening, and they're just so raptured by my voice that they can't type. Um, not really. Okay. So the people who are responding, nobody really understood what that line was saying. And what's important is in a script, you don't want to throw off the read because the idea is a script should kind of float through your hands like magic. Okay? And as you're reading, you just want to turn the page and keep going. And you don't want things to read so complicated. And one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like using the apostrophe like you do up here in morning and M for them, one of the reasons why they don't like that is because just if it's anything more complicated than what you have here, uh, it interrupts the flow of the read, and people are trying to figure out what you're writing. These are fine. These are simple. Um, uh, these parts being new in town and all. They'll pick on you till you notice. I'm not sure if they're bad people and they stab you in the back. I'm not sure getting people to notice them is important. I think there's something else there. Being new, being new in town and all, it's more like something like they got a target on their back now, or you'll be ripe pickings for them because nobody'll know if you disappear. Catch my meaning? Now, I don't know if you like that. Uh, uh, does that make sense?
Yep.
Now, is that more what you were trying to say?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. All right. I'm just trying to help you. Okay, Gentry. We'll go about our, we'll go about our we'll go about our business and head home. Gentry looks up. Go ahead. Do you have a question?
No, he doesn't want to get involved. He doesn't want to acknowledge that these guys are really gonna, they're not gonna leave him alone.
Right. Well, this is a little on the nose, so maybe he says something like, "We won't dally." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm. Now that makes more of a sense. Now maybe Cole eyes the cowpokes out the window and rests his hand on his revolver. Gentry eyes Cole and shakes his head. So, do you see what I did there?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. What I'm doing is I'm having what is Cole saying?
He's ready to
He's saying I
take
can
on.
take care of this.
Yeah.
So you're doing that without him saying a word. You see what I mean? That's dialogue.
Yeah.
That's creating conflict. And then Gentry eyes Cole and shakes his head. What does that mean?
Well, he's not in agreement with Cole that
That's
he.
right. Now that's a meaningful action that affects what's going to happen here, right?
Yeah.
So you're already now what we're doing is we have one guy in the scene ready to do something about the situation. So immediately what we're doing is because until now there's no threat in the actual setting. You want to make sure there's conflict in the setting in every scene. Your scene right now doesn't have conflict, and without conflict, you have no scene. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I'm trying to insert a sense of conflict here, so that the scene feels like it has meaning, and there's a little bit of pins and needles happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also, do you want to call him? You don't need both names. Once you've introduced a character, unless it's like detective or sheriff something or whatever, you don't need a first and last name when you bring him up because here you call him Green. On the action lines you call him Adam Green, and then other times you call him Green, and then other time you know what I mean. I would in action lines I would pick one name. Would you rather call him Green or Adam?
Green, I guess.
All right, then let's just keep it simple. Now there are two Greens in the scene. One of them is Margaret, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you want to call him Adam.
Okay.
Because otherwise you can get confused which one is which. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to do Adam Green. And if you do that, you can't explain. We can't see that this is his wife. That you can't, right? I mean, just by looking at her, you go, "Oh, that's his wife." You can't tell what the relationship between people. What you have to, all you could do is give indications. They're cuddly, they're kissy, they snap at each other. He calls her honey. You know, there are ways you can indicate what their relationship is. But if the person sitting in the chair in the audience watching your movie cannot tell the information from what they're seeing, it doesn't belong in the action line. An action line is for visuals and sound effects only, like physical visuals, not describing what we see in a conclusionary way. We're talking about what we see. It's clear. It's a physical action or a sound effect. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So now, when did Margaret? Has Margaret been in here the whole time, or did she just enter through the back door?
She's been in there the whole time.
All right. Well, then this isn't where you see her for the first time, is it?
No.
Then we can't.
That's for
Then we need to move her to where
knowledge.
she is, where she comes in. Now he can see Margaret here for the first time. Or you know what? Margaret needs to appear from somewhere because if he's going to take off his hat because he sees her for the first time, then we see her for the first time, which means if she's been there, then we need to know why we haven't seen her. Margaret Green, 52. Looks like Whistler's mother. Steps behind a shelf, an aisle. No, it's not an aisle. It's a shelf. What is it? A shelf is just a thing that can be on a wall. What's the aisle? The aisle is the thing between that people walk through. What is the thing that separates aisles? Is there a word for that?
I don't know, corridor?
No, no, the actual thing that things should a partition from
Uh,
a shelving aisle. Shelving partition? That's not right. It's not partition. Steps from another aisle. And then you have gentry. Now, there are certain words, everybody, that you're going to want to look at and say, I usually use that word when I'm not
yeah.
using the right word. So,
Removes.
takes off. Off is one of those words that usually is part of saying something that if you found the right word, you wouldn't need it. He removes
Yeah.
his hat. Excuse me, ma'am. Now, here's the thing. Gentry is particularly well mannered, right? I mean, there's a reason why
Yeah.
I think you named him Gentry, which is vernacular for gentleman, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes or no? Was that an accent?
I wasn't really thinking of that consciously, but maybe subconsciously, some way.
Well, let me
But
put it
yeah,
this way:
he's
Do
got.
you want him to be a gentleman?
Yeah.
And like,
Well,
is he educated? Is he? I mean, there's a reason. Usually, a
yeah.
pacifist tends to be
Education.
educated.
Yeah.
He's been through enough and seen enough that he's a little wearier, a little smarter, a little bit more. So if he's the kind of guy who's super well mannered and comes from either money or an education, then instead of Green, Green kind of seems like more of a nosy, prickly fellow, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if he needs to use the word ma'am. If you want somebody to be very much like hand in hat ma'am, and you want that to be Gentry, then I wouldn't give Adam the exact same thing. Let your hero be a specific character and don't do the same things with different characters because it makes them less unique.
Sure. That makes
So
sense.
I don't think you need any of this. And he could just be talking to the group as they enter.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You fellas sure know how to pick them. That's a great first line anyway. It's much better than ma'am. And plus the morning ma'am, that's what we call in week 2. You're learning about this in the dialogue lesson, and it was also in the list of the 7 deadly dialogue sins, and it's in the book about
Maybe not greetings.
no pleasantries.
Yeah. I know.
It's in what's it called? The Screenwriter's Bible by David
Yep.
Trottier. He has the 7 dialogue sins, and gosh, they're just perfect. You know, you really need to memorize those sins and try to avoid them. One of them is pleasantries, so you don't have a hi, how you doing, and goodbye, it was nice to see you, and how's the
Yep.
weather, unless unless there's a real sense of irony and a level of subtext behind it. Like, for example, if somebody's
Yep.
saying a pleasantry like, um, lovely weather we're having, it only works if it's storming like crazy over their heads. Now, all of a sudden, because he's not speaking on the nose, all of a sudden, it's not just typical, like, hi, we could hear that and it means nothing. It's a reveal of personality.
Hmm.
Um, All right. So, also another thing I realize here is that we have what's called a dangler. All of you are going to be associated with. You're going to understand this term later. A dangler is when you have one word, a single word, that hangs over and takes over a whole nother line of your script. And that's really what that is a cue for you as a writer to look back and see, you know what? Maybe I can tighten that up just a little tiny bit and save a whole line of text and make this whole script read a little cleaner, a little faster, and let it move a little. So when I see one word hanging over, it's what other screenwriting gurus call they call them orphans and widows. When you have one little word and you find a way to get rid of it and move it up. So you fellows sure know how to pick them. Those two are the meanest, back shooting, thieving weasels in these parts. Being new in town, we'll get rid of it all. Didn't help.
Mhm.
Instead of you'll be, you're ripe pickings for him. Because nobody will know if you disappear. Catch my meaning, friend? All right. So we'll go about our business and head home. Gentry looks. The word up is one of those words that 9 times out of 10 in scene descriptions are superfluous. Looks. Instead of looks up to. Now, first of all, by the way, this two, the word two, it's in the cheat sheet. And it's a lot of little things I'm teaching you here. And it's all about it's subtlety and finesse about writing perfect scripts. The word to is leading. The word to is intent. It gives intent. So you're saying he looks around to see the shop displays,
Mhm.
as opposed to he looks instead of you're not allowed to give intent in the action lines. He scans the shop displays.
Sure.
Now here's a point where you start the dialogue where you get off of even the removed conflict, because really what this scene is so far about is that there's conflict outside. There's no conflict in here. And now you're going to start talking about I love your shop. Now, does that have anything to do with the plot at the end? Does he open a shop?
No, it's showing some connection with Gentry to Adam. That
And why? What what
well,
what story wise why? I understand you're trying to probably say he has manners and he's a nice guy, but I think the ma'am does that, and I think you want in a screenplay you want to stay focused on the danger.
right. But I was where I was at was that Gentry doesn't want to face the danger. He's trying to get off the subject. But yeah,
Right. Well, he can try to change the subject, but then you need to get right back to it and show that you're not gonna let him change the subject. Instead, he talks about the shop, and then this is what I want when I get older to have a shop. And then Margaret, excuse me, ma'am, I didn't mean no disrespect. You have this here is a third of a page
yeah,
where you've taken a left turn with no tension.
right.
What is, and I understand that not every line can be filled with tension, but if you're going to have him swerve to the right, you kind of need to have the dramatic hand smack him back to the left. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So uh, let's read and see where we get back to the scene, because we kind of leave the scene here. Margaret
Yep.
Green gently smiles. Uh, Adam chuckles again. You're by the way, gently. The ly words are adverbs. 9 times out of 10, you don't need those either. Uh, we try to give a lot of white space in a script. He chuckles again. That's not. We're not. It's not saying. It's not really forwarding anything. A serious wave overtakes Adam. A serious wave of what?
Seriousness.
Okay.
A wave of seriousness overtakes Adam
Why?
because he wants to warn them about those cowpokes. He knows how bad they are, and he knows that Gentry's
So I
not
love
going to
your
listen to him.
shop. And then let's see. Do we need Margaret? Does Margaret do anything else in the scene?
Mm,
Adam Green, how could you?
consoles, just consoles.
She doesn't do.
Um,
She doesn't do anything in the scene other than that one line, really.
no, well, she scolds Adam at one point, and then she uh, consoles Gentry's wife. That's about it.
Do you think you need her? Because basically,
No.
think about the two things that Margaret does in the scene. One is she scolds Adam for doing what?
Well,
Creating tension, which is what you want. Then she consoles somebody, which does what? Again, deflects tension, which is
yeah,
the opposite of what you want.
yeah,
A character, when there are multiple characters in a scene, each should bring their own level of tension. And it can be a different kind of tension. It can Margaret can be after something else, or her tension can come from a different way, but it doesn't really seem like you need her.
no,
Now,
she's not that important.
is
No,
she
she's
what?
not
Is she
important.
important later in the story?
No.
And now here's going to be my last question. Thinking about if there is anything she's of use for, what if now because I like to bend gender. I like to do things that other people aren't doing. What if Margaret is Adam and Margaret is trying to warn them, and it's a female shopkeeper? It's something to think
Okay.
about. It's possible. So it's something I mentioned. It does two things because in that era, a woman recommending a guy take a gun, that's a very strong woman. And two, because that's what Adam does. Two, that way she could, in a sense, take care of, be considerate of the wife or whatever. It just also allows the scene to play on different levels. So I'm not saying you want to do that. I'm just saying if you wish to do it, when she can be also a woman can also be one of those gossipy, nosy people. It's kind of funny. One of the sitcoms I used to watch reruns of a kid as a kid was Bewitched, and they had this funny woman neighbor who was always sticking her nose in
Uh,
everybody else's business. I don't know if you remember that. Do you?
oh yeah, definitely. I remember that. She,
Exactly.
uh,
Well, that would be very funny for a shopkeeper in the Wild West.
was it Mrs. Kravitz or something?
Mrs. Kravitz. Oh my God, I can't believe you pulled that name. Gladys. Gladys Kravitz. There you go. You know why she's so memorable? Because she was a female
So
character with a
nosy.
lot of personality and very nosy. Yes. Uh, and we love seeing characters that aren't every day. The male country western shopkeeper, you know, I don't know if we're going to get anything special out of that. You know what I mean? But if it's
Yeah.
Whistler's mother, who's this gray old shopkeeper woman saying, you know, I got a Colt 32 with a 57 Magnum pull back trigger with a hair fire thing, if think of ways to make each character matter. So I think you could do something with Adam by maybe playing with the gender or I don't know. It's something to think about. You could even, in a sense, people were not outwardly. It wasn't. It wasn't very. I'm trying to think if there's a way to. I mean, Adam could be. Let's just put it this way: Adam could be flamboyant, a little bit more flamboyant, which would be very unique as a Western shopkeeper if it were a male flamboyant character, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not suggesting you do that. My point is I think you can do something with Adam so he's not so on the nose. So either way, I think you only need one shopkeeper. Make that one person interesting enough to hold it by themselves because you have enough people in the scene already to have back and forth. You don't need a fourth actor or a fifth actor actually, because you have Gentry, you have Sarah, you have Cole, you have Margaret, and you have Adam. That's 5 people, and only 2 of them are really speaking.
Yeah.
That's a lot of actors you're feeding that day, even if you shoot this on no budget. Now imagine you're paying people to be there that day. You put people in a scene who you're going to use, characters you're going to use who mean something. I like having Cole in the scene because he's the one with the gun. I like that. Sarah can add a layer of concern. So if you want somebody to be showing extra concern, Sarah could be doing that. Uh, as a matter of fact, there's no point to have Gentry say everything in the whole scene. Maybe here in the West, there's this thing about quiet men. Maybe Sarah's the one who says we'll just go about our business and head home because she doesn't have a line in the whole scene while she's supposed to be in there, right?
Yep.
Maybe it'd be nice to let the actress talk. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I also think the characters. I don't know if you noticed this in your real life, but when you're really nervous about something or tension is really high, what do you usually do? I shut the hell up and listen. I shut up. I would rather not say a word when things look like they're going down and there's a situation. I'm looking around and I'm thinking. My brain is working overtime. I'm not going to be chatty. Does that make sense? It shows more fear if he's less chatty. Does that? So,
yep.
What we say?
No, I agree with you.
Okay, great. All right. So
that follows Sarah's character more so too.
Yeah, and you want the lead is the person you're showing the most. That doesn't mean they're talking the most. Remember, a protagonist is a person who winds up taking bold and decisive actions that may and who are pushed out of their comfort zone. That doesn't mean they're chatty at all. As a matter of fact, usually a person of action is a little less chatty because there are talkers and there are doers. And I think Gentry and Cole walk the walk. And I think Sarah, if Cole is an ex-soldier, ex-soldiers usually aren't very chatty either with non-soldiers. You know what I mean? They've seen a lot.
Right. Yeah.
And Gentry's concerned about this situation. I would probably think that of the 3 of them, Sarah might actually be the most chatty of them all.
Yeah.
So I think these 2 she's making conversation, and I love your shop. I just love your shop. You see, all of a sudden she's being sweet. Well, Gentry is deciding with Cole how to handle the situation. So there's, in a sense, 2 little conversations happening. One between Sarah and Adam, or if you make it Margaret, whatever your choice is, and then the other going on between the other 2, which is how are we going to deal with this? Cole, I think he reloads his revolver because he shot in the street, right?
Yes.
So he's reloading. He's hearing this and he's reloading. Isn't that much stronger?
Yeah. Well, he did that earlier, or was it later? Where is it now?
Did he load it before he fired shots at them, or has he reloaded since then?
Yeah, he reloads when Adam Green says about how bad these guys are, and Cole reloads his revolver.
So he does that later in the scene.
And he says, "I'll be ready." Didn't he already say that? Yeah, I'll be ready.
No, he does it here.
So
45.
yeah,
So
he
there, his
does.
drawing is 45, but up
He loads the chamber.
reloads his Colt revolver, goes through the window. Shakes his head. Cole, uh, mm, gestures, uh, um, Gentry. See, now, you see what I mean? Now he's get away from the windows. So we're thinking a gunfight could erupt any minute.
Okay.
Meanwhile, all of a sudden, this is going on in the back. This is going on in the background. You know, I would be having this go on and have this going on off camera behind them while they're going through the other. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in a screenplay, it's off screen. In a teleplay, it's off camera. Don't ask me why. It's just how they do things. I don't know why it's so different. You know what? This one doesn't have to be off screen. So this line is going on during that, and then this line can take place on a serious. Okay, so you don't need to say he's serious because the next line says he's serious, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So you don't need to. What you don't want to wind up doing is having a character say, "This is about to be serious," and then you have it be serious. Don't talk about it. Just do it. Show, don't tell. Points both index fingers. You don't need to say it's a warning because it needs to be clear. At the cowboy, you were over directing, telling him how he's delivering the line. Keep it simple.
Okay.
Bushwhackers. These bushwhackers will come for you. See, this is where I realized you got back to the story. You had this long diverging conversation between Gentry and them about the shop, and I love your shop, and
Yep.
Margaret, ma'am. I think that this is much simpler, and you're going to keep the tension. You're going to keep the scene much more intense. Uh, I would. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Uh, I'm just tempted to either call him Mr. Green or something like that. Uh, or I don't know. Shop. No. Okay. Just leave it Adam Green. It's fine. Just so you know, this is me. I overanalyze every single little thing. That's what editing is. It's we're working on a short script, and good thing because the amount of detail work that goes into editing, um, it used to be very hard for students when we did features in this program. It was very hard for them to get an entire script really edited extremely well. But you can do that with a short film during our class. I just love your shop on our way home. You don't need weights for a supply. You don't need on your way home. You can, or do on your way home. Now, just so you know, a period, just like a comma, always has a space after it and never a space before it, even when it's an ellipses. Okay? So I got rid of the bold. I'm here home. You don't make it look like engine's done you. Okay. So Sarah gasps. Now Green's wife. Now you called her Green's wife here. You'd called her Margaret before. You always want, just as for everybody's sake, you always want to call a character by one name in the descriptions and never change what you're calling them, and don't call them by the relationship to another character. Just find the right name for them. Use that one name so that it's always clear who you're talking about, because you don't want, when people, sometimes people read fast in the industry when they're looking at your writing as a sample, and if they are getting confused who's what and who's who, and they'll get confused and they'll blame the writer. So Adam, I don't think Sarah needs, I would say Gentry comforts Sarah. But comforts is a conclusion, not a physical action. So what does he do?
Hugs. Hugs, Sarah?
I think you robbed the tension. I think he's concerned that this is going to explode in a minute, and that these guys are going to kill him. And why doesn't he just hush her? Like, it's going to be all right.
Yeah, that creates more tension.
Exactly. Now, is he saying sorry, man? And then he's going to go on and say, don't quit till they kill. Don't quit to what cues this line? Don't quit till they kill. Dead, dead, dead. What is he saying with that?
That those filthy cowpokes, they don't quit till they kill.
Okay, all right.
He's just kind of goofy that way, you know. He's a little nervous about saying dead, you know. But
Right. I think it'll make more sense. I'm a huge fan of getting rid of the pronoun at the front of a line of dialogue. Trista, were you the one with a question earlier before you take off? Just making sure that you had all your questions answered if you have to go. All right. If anybody's going to leave and they did have questions, just text me in the chat box and we'll answer it right away. Okay. So that you do get all your questions answered before you leave. Otherwise, I'll continue to work with the person I'm working with. Okay. So they don't quit till they kill. Dead, dead, dead. Now, it's odd if he's saying sorry, ma'am, here, and then continuing to just freak the hell out of her here. I hate to.
That's why he whispers, because he isn't. But
So
I guess
whispers to Gentry.
Yeah.
Gentry and Cole. Or just instead of whispers. Won't quit till you. Um, so I think that makes it clear, but then it leaves us with this dangler.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Cole. Now, now instead of here, spins the chamber. Okay. I'm not going to have him shake his head to him there. I'm going to pull that out. We'll have this line simple here, where he has the Colt 45. Cole gestures for Gentry to stay away from the windows. So he's loading his gun. Then here, instead of loading the gun, then he's spinning it, and then he'll put it back in the holster. Okay. So I'm going to... They won't stop till you're dead. So Cole, on cue, spins the chamber, slaps it shut, spins the chamber, slaps it shut, rolls his gun around his hand fluidly. I don't want fluidly. We don't need adverbs. His hand. Do we want to see? Now, question. Cole is the tough guy, right? He's the one we expect to be the hero, right?
Yeah.
Now, I seriously hope, and this is terrible for me to say this, I'm hoping you kill him at the low point. Which would force Gentry to fight his own battle at the end, making him have to rise to the challenge. A lot of great structure is killing the mentor.
Yeah. Cole he doesn't get killed, but he gets knocked over the head, so Gentry's all alone, and then he does get shot.
You're not killing him. You have to make clear the stakes of the movie. Are the stakes getting knocked unconscious, or are the stakes life and death? What are the stakes? And if the stakes are life and death, you have to have somebody die. Otherwise, you're not showing the audience what the movie is, what the intent. You know what I mean?
Well, both of the antagonists. So the antagonist dies, and his sidekick.
Well, when they die, the movie's over. You have to show the protagonist what he stands to lose.
Right.
You need a sample. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What did I do here? I just lost it.
Anyway, we were talking about whether or not to kill Cole. Now, I was just telling you that if you're setting him up as the guy who can handle the situation, then the smartest thing you can do is you take him out of the picture at the low point of the movie or at the midpoint, forcing your hero to take up the mantle themselves.
Well, yeah, they knock him out, and
knock him out doesn't really set the stakes.
No, then he gets shot later. They think he's dead.
It's okay. Look, you could shoot him. As long as you shoot him, he doesn't have to be dead. He can wind up with a bullet in the shoulder. They could have shot him in the gut, and he still somehow gets saved. But it's okay for him not to necessarily be dead, but you have to have. The key is it's perfect for the midpoint, honestly, because you need a moment where Gentry has to think, oh my God, I'm going to die. Oh my God, that's what's at stake for me. So Gentry has to believe he's dead, and the audience has to, because we're in that character's shoes, also believe he's dead.
Yes, they do. And you don't realize he isn't dead until the very end when Sarah comes out.
Okay, well then that's fine. But you said they knock him out. To me, that just means he got hit on the head, and I'm never going to think that he's dead if that's the case.
Well, no, he gets back up later, but when they're beating the crap out of Gentry, and then he comes out, but then they shoot him too.
All right. Well, you make sure that a lot of times what we do is we focus on moving the script along at a clip. When you have one of those big moments, like for example, when Cole gets shot, that's the moment when you take a moment and you slow down the script and you take a moment to give some detail in that moment. Because what you're saying to the cinematographer and the director and the actor is that you need to take a moment and let this moment be a moment in the film. See, some people don't put two and two together. We all know, hopefully, I think you know, is that on average, a page of script is a minute of screen time.
Right.
So, if you make a specific moment take a little longer, what you're saying is you're going to take some extra screen time with that moment. We only slow down the script at huge turning points in the story that shock and awe us. His death should be one of those moments, or his alleged death, or whatever that situation is. Anyway, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not confusing. Okay, so slaps it shut. The gun rolls the gun as it rolls the gun around his hand and cocks the hammer. Holsters. Now, just so you know, holsters is not a sound effect, so you wouldn't capitalize that.
Well, what I was intending was there's a sound when the gun goes into the holster. But
Let the sound guy do that. I understand there's a loud clicking.
yeah.
You know, see, even this I would do spins the revolver's chamber. I wouldn't even capitalize that. Now he doesn't holster his pit. Okay, so I would have him do that. Cocks the hammer. Cole, I'll be ready. Gentry eyes Cole and shakes his head. Cole holsters his gun. You're dead right, mister. Okay, Green. See, here you called him Green instead of Adam, so let's just Green laughs. Now, nervously is an adjective. What? Are you gonna? Do you want? You're not gonna hurt my feelings. It doesn't matter to me. Do you want Adam to be a male or a female?
I'm since you introduced that, I've been thinking more about that. I don't know yet. I haven't.
Okay, if you keep it a male, if you want to give this guy, everybody laughs. But this guy's a coot of a character. I think Cackles is a little better.
Okay.
See what I mean? If it's a guy, you would find a different. If it's a woman, I don't know if she'd laugh. But anyway, so instead of the ring of the bells the door causes, the bell on the door rings. You want to keep things easy to understand. Sarah, instead of to flinch, causes her to flinch, she jumps. Jumps. Now, here you're saying he steps outside for a smoke. You're not allowed to tell us
Okay. Right.
why he's doing it, if that makes sense. You can't
Yes.
tell us why he's going outside. But if he's going outside after loading his gun, as you had him do, we think he's going to go out there and fight, not smoke. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, do you really want him to walk outside at this moment? I think he seems pretty ready for a fight.
Yeah, he doesn't need to go outside. Um, you just have to remove his line about that was just to create some tension when he comes back in. That there's some activity going on at the saloon,
Okay.
but
Hey, Sarah jumps. You ain't gonna let your men.
I guess that
Wait,
was also
the bell on the door rings. Who was that? Was that Cole leaving?
yeah, that should be mentioned first, I guess, before the bell.
Yeah, you have to. This is also very important, everybody. And there's a lot of. You see, what's great is that there are a lot of great lessons to learn from this. You can't tell us things out of order. You can't write action out of order. It will confuse the reader to no end. Everything is told in the order that it happens on screen. So if he's stepping outside, he goes to step outside, then the door rings. Now, if he's not leaving, this isn't happening.
Hmm.
Uh, so since nobody's going outside, Adam cackles. Okay, I don't know. I'm wondering if Cole goes for the door, then Gentry could could stop him, and he could say, and he could hold up a cigarette, like I'm going for a smoke. But I don't know if you need to have him exit here. Um, uh, Gentry says nothing. You can't. Okay, here's another thing. You can't tell us somebody is not doing something. You always have to describe what we are seeing, not what we're not. Because, for example, if I tell you, picture a room that's not blue, that doesn't tell you what you're seeing. I got pistol for sale. Best strap on. See, I think this is a much better line after he offers him the pistol and he doesn't take it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then it makes more sense. Okay. So if we're getting rid of that, just think. I got just what you need. I got just what you need. Now don't tell him, show him. Now, where does Adam keep the pistols?
The gun cabinet.
Give you a good price. See, now he's not saying, I'm going to sell you a gun. He opens it and he's not being on the nose. Got just what you need. All right. You damn good price too. Best strap on. Now this again is the listing comma between two adjectives. Um, peeks out the window. You don't need to the saloon. Uh, What happens in the next scene? Where is this scene going so I know how to help you end it?
They're in the saloon. They come to the saloon.
Now, why are they going to the saloon when they think somebody's out there to kill them? They think that's a good time to get liquored up and lose control of your faculties?
Well, they want to reason with cowpokes, that they don't mean them any harm, and they want them to go about their way, and you know,
Well, they
they
don't
just
mean them harm, but the other guys mean these guys harm, right?
yeah,
I'm not sure it makes sense now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe what makes sense if uh, if Cole helps him reject the gun offer and says, "What you need is liquid courage, brother," and that would lead them to the saloon. So you make it clear that they're going to the saloon to get a little courage to deal with the ride home.
okay.
What do you think?
Well, they have to have a reason to, I guess, go to the saloon. Um, I
Did something happen in the saloon that's important to the story?
well, yeah, that's where
What
the
happens?
fight starts. That's where the shootout starts.
All right. All right. Gentry peeks out the window. To now, where are the cowpokes? They were outside. Where are they now? Did they go into the saloon?
Yeah,
Well, if they watch them go into the saloon, I don't know if that's where they're going to go. Do they come into the saloon later after they have already gone inside?
Gentry and Cole go to the saloon later.
And when they go to the saloon after here, but are the cowpokes already in there when they arrive, or do they come
Yeah,
in
yeah,
later?
I have them already in there. Yeah, it wouldn't have to be, but that's how it starts. Then they approach them. They approach the filthy cowpokes, and that's when you know, they
Gentry peeks out the window to okay, I got it, and sees the cowpokes head into the saloon. Adam Green, you ain't gonna let your man do this by himself, are you? You don't tell us what the characters are about to do. You show don't tell. So you don't need to tell us if somebody's going to explain something or say something. Um, Hold on. I got a question in the. There's a question in the chat window for me.
uh-huh.
Professor Tab, if he peeks out the window to the saloon, should it not be a scene heading to show his POV? Definitely not. You would do that if this were a shooting script and you were the director, and but you don't put specific shots in the script. The director does that. So the problem is that sometimes there is a big difference between what is in a production draft of a script you may find and read from online versus the draft of the script that's sold and got set up that was written by a writer. There's the writer version of the script, and then the director, sometimes with the writer, will turn around and add all the little information that you're used to seeing in a script for his production draft that they're going to go shoot. It's like he puts his own notes in there so that it's clear what he plans on doing, and it makes things a little clearer for the cinematographer and the set people and everything like that. But but directors, when they get a script, when people are considering buying a script, they don't want to be told. A director doesn't want to be told how to direct it. A cinematographer doesn't want to be told necessarily how to light it. These are things that they know how to do better than me and better than you as writers. They are experienced, and they will find just like you don't tell an actor how to act and over dictate acting. unless the actual action or emotion actually plays into the momentum of the scene and makes a change happen. If tears aren't forcing something to happen, then you don't tell us when somebody cries. If somebody cries, it's because that leads to something important, and it's a major moment and it's a major thing. Otherwise, you let the actors do their job, because I could think a character should yell a line because it's the high point of drama, but the truth is some actors can whisper with more power than somebody can yell. So you have to trust that the actor is going to do what they do best and be able to do it in a way you never imagined. Just like they don't need to tell us how to create drama and conflict. We don't need to tell them how to do their jobs. So anyway, I don't think Gentry paces. Gentry stares at the guns. Sarah shakes. Sarah should do something here because she hasn't done anything in a while. Uh, Sarah, what do you think Sarah would do if somebody's asking what is this is important? What does Sarah think of his pacifistness? I know that's not a word. I just made it up. But what does she think of
Well,
his non-violent attitude?
well, she doesn't want her husband to go uh,
Has he
get
ever
killed.
fought? Is he a non-fighter because he's seen enough violence, or is he a non-fighter because he's never dealt with violence?
He's never dealt with violence.
Okay. All right. So what if she's encouraging him to do it? She wants him to be a man, to grow a pair. They're out here in the country. They're not used to this terrain, and she's realizing that there's only one way they're going to be safe. So he's considering it. I'm going to make this more of a moment by separating these two different beats. Eyes wide. Do you think that indicates that he might be a little afraid?
Yeah.
Uh, no, two on the nose. See, by the way, I pick my own dialogue apart too. It's never easy what we do. Okay, so let's look at where the scene is going. I won't be wait until noon. Uh, Go over to the saloon, buy him a drink. Did they threaten to? Yes, Lisa. We do. We're always killing our babies. Do you think Gentry? Uh, did they challenge the line about here? Don't I won't wait until noon. Do you think it? Did they say they're going to meet at noon to fight?
Yeah.
Was that why you're mentioning noon here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't do anything.
Do you like it better if he says man to man or like men?
Mm, either or, I guess. And talk this out like men. Yeah, that's more. I guess it flows better with talk this out like men.
Strokes. Because now, see, the idea is when you have a line that's on the nose, the key is that you make it mean something that it's not meaning. So he's saying, instead of saying what he's not saying, if he's if he's stroking the handle of his gun, and he's saying he's mighty thirsty,
Mm,
what is he thirsty for?
to kill.
That's right. So it's not on the nose. Where they're going to a saloon, and he's thirsty, but for blood. You see what I'm? This is called layering in subtext. On the surface, it sounds like he's saying one thing, but underneath it, what it's really saying is something far more intense and conflict ridden. Um,
Oh, that's good.
Adam Green, by the gun. Want to talk like men? You need a man. You need a man across from you. By the gun, son. Does that work?
Yeah.
Does that convey what he's trying to say? You think? I don't think he's chuckling. I think this is far too intense for a chuckle. This isn't a comedy. This isn't light. We've rifled the scene now with all the conflict it didn't have before. So
Mm-hmm.
here at the end, you might as well order a pine box now. Let the actor choose whether he wants to laugh.
You can just leave all that off, I guess.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Creates more conflicts, more tension. Yeah.
And Sarah's not just sitting there like you don't want Sarah.
Yeah.
The worst thing you could do is write a role of a lady who acts like an idiot. You don't want your leading lady to be this doe-eyed. She can be a damsel who has distress, but she has to have fight. She's a human being. The problem with cinema, the first 50 years, is that they wrote women as cowards or meddlers or whatever. When what you need to write is what women want to play are strong, vibrant women. They can have fear because the male characters, also have fear. But don't fall into the cliche the way most women are written in classic westerns. What you want to do is write women, strong women of a great new kind of western. You know what I mean?
Like Barbara Stanwyck.
Yeah, Barbara Stanwyck or well, oh, Margaret O'Hara or O'Hara. I forgot what her first name is, but you want
Maureen.
Maureen O'Hara. Thank you. You want write the women. See, Adam Green cackles. Sarah slaps the laugh off his face. I don't think she even needs to say it. Do you? I don't. She slaps the laugh off his face. I love that.
Yeah. And if we're eliminating the extra character,
Yep. You don't need it. Now, if you're telling me he's got gray hair, you need to have put. You don't refer just like you don't refer to her as his wife. Don't define women, by the way, in your scripts, guys. Don't define women in your scripts by their relationship with the man in the script. Always define a woman as her own, as her own. She owns her own. So this person's wife, that person's daughter. Make sure it's just refer to that character. Okay. So if he has gray hair, make sure you put that in the original introduction of the shopkeeper, so that we don't need it here. Gentry, Adam, here we go. Adam reaches behind the counter. We don't need it on the high dusty shelf. Cole draws his Colt 45 because he doesn't know what he's reaching for. Right?
right?
Adam places a little. Again, you have the two descriptive words. You got to start using the comma between adjectives. Little bottle places the little the small green bottle onto the counter. We don't need Cole re-entering. We don't need that. Gentry. I thought he wasn't waiting till noon, so what's he looking at on the wall?
You see how close it's getting to the time.
Okay. Well, then what you can do is be constantly a way to layer in tension is have him. He's looking at the clock, 11:50. Then a few beats later, it's 11:55. It's 11:59. You know what I mean? That's another way to layer tension in the scene. It's what we call literally a ticking clock.
Right.
Okay. So thought he wasn't waiting until noon, but so does is it noon or is it not noon? Because you have it show us the wall, but you don't tell us what time it is, so we don't know what we're supposed to glean from that moment. You need to be very clear. If you've made it clear that there's a specific time that the clock needs to read, that they're supposed to do something, we need to know what the relationship to time is in that moment. So what time is it right now?
Oh, I don't know, 11 o'clock.
All right. So it's not midnight. I mean, it's not noon.
No, he's gonna do this. He's gonna do this potion.
All right. Instead of two, to look at the clock. Let it be a grandfather clock. It times for 11 a.m. Now, it's not going to go till noon before they fight, is it? Are they going to have another thing and then they're going to still wait for noon, or does is the 12 o'clock deadline, is that really an empty deadline?
Well, it's not empty in the eyes of the antagonist. Um, no, it's not empty. That's when they plan on.
But do you actually does anything happen at noon?
They go over there before noon. I guess the irony is that when it's all over, that's when the noon clock goes off. But that was what I had, but it's not necessarily that important.
It blows the dust. Wipes the dust from it with his sleeve. won't take. If he won't, buy no gun. I like ending on the ticking clock. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's like fate is calling, ringing. All right. All right. I think we have a pretty. Uh, this scene when we started, just so you know, what just peaked onto page 4. Now it's just the top maybe quarter of page 3. So we've cut it down. We've made it 10 times more intense. Got rid of a character. It does everything you had the scene initially do last time. Only I think it's much more fluid and engaging. Just for editing, but it's all the same things that you wanted to do with the scene, only it's been edited for intensity and conflict. We make sure every character has a unique perspective. Uh, Tell me how do you feel about it? Do you feel that that we've made any changes that don't work for you so far?
I like it.
Okay, good. Do you have any questions about any of the changes that I have made to this?
No, it's all it flowed very nicely the way you went from one thing to the next and helped create building tension.
Well, you don't feel I changed the intent of the piece. Everything that happened in the scene is what needed to happen for you, right? Dramatically.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, great. All right. If you don't have any questions, then I now will open it up for anybody else who had questions to feel free to ask at this time. Does anybody have any questions? There was somebody who had a question at the beginning. Victoria, yes, please feel free to unmute your microphone and ask, or you can type the question into the chat box if you prefer.
Hey, okay, so can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Good. So regarding, you were saying the dangling words in the dialogue.
Yes, it can work for dialogue or action lines, just a single word hanging over.
Okay, so it's only one word. So if we have like two words on the next one,
yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if it was a preference.
Oh no, sure. The dangler thing is it's just the if you have 2 or 3 words, then it's using the line of space. It is using it. But if it's one word and you can move it up, or if it's if there's 2 words, I mean, look, see if there's space to cut something so that it all fits better and it moves faster. If not, then 2 words or more, I'm not going to say anything. But if there was one word and there was a clear way for me at least to see that you could have really brought that up a line, then that I'll mark. You know what I mean?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So thank you. That was my big question.
It's a good question. Do you have any other questions?
Not at this moment. Just a lot to take in.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. editing,
Okay.
editing. It's just a ton of really great, nifty little tricks. Uh, and so, does anybody else have any questions? Okay. Well, if nobody has any questions, then I've done my job for this evening. I'm sick, so I can get an early night's rest. I will try to post this online for everyone, and I'm going to stop recording.